The pension is going to drop them off somewhere at $40, $50, $60,000 of income every single year, inflated out into time until the day that they die. And that's a very powerful thing.
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole, the podcast proving you don't need a degree in finance, just some grit, a game plan, and maybe a sense of humor. Your hosts are retired Army veteran Rob Moore and retired Marine veteran Omen Quelvog. Together, they'll help you dodge financial landmines, call in the air support on your savings, and laugh at the ridiculous money mistakes we've all made. If you can survive mandatory fund days, you can survive personal finance. Welcome to the Foxhole.
And welcome once again to the Fiscal Foxhole. I'm your host for today, Rob Moore. Joining me, as always, on the other side of the Foxhole, talking about financial nonsense, is Omen. My bracket is already busted. Quelvog.
What bracket? Dude, I don't even have a bracket. One? No way.
Oh, you
no
don't
bracket.
Do it? No.
I don't blame you. When I had an office to hang out in, I had a bracket. But I don't feel like we really have an office to hang out in. I mean, maybe you and I should do a bracket. Why don't we discuss that?
We could do the Foxhole bracket.
The Foxhole
by the time we record the next one, it'll both be in shreds. It'll be embarrassing, I'm sure. Yeah, why not? We should do that. That's not a bad idea. I've not done one recently either, because the thrill of like the first day or two is always it's kind of over by that point. We've done one with our family, some family stuff. We might do that, but yeah, the thrill of that is gone. I will feast on this though. The memory long ago when I was in grad school, I was on the ESPN leaderboard in the suite. Yeah, going into the Elite Eight, I was number 49. And I remember I had Indiana beating Texas, and if that had happened, I would have been number one in the nation. Yeah, for some reason I just lucked out, but it did not happen. So I went from 49 to like 400,000, whatever. After that, yeah, that one loss. But
we have to have a review on our gambling episode.
You're right.
This is what happens.
Yeah, this is how you get hooked. But after that, I've been chasing that dragon ever since. It never got anywhere close. But it's a really great time right now, sports-wise. If you're a sports fan, for like me, the sports I'm interested in, it is a awesome time. We've got the World Baseball Classic, which by the time this airs will have concluded, because now the USA they're in the finals tomorrow night. So we will watch that. They beat Dominican Republic last night. It was a heartbreaker call at the end. A ball that was like 3 inches below the strike zone, and the ump called strike 3 on the Dominican Republic, and USA won. So tough break for them, but USA continues, which is a lot of fun for me and the boys. We're watching those. We talked about college basketball. The NCAA tournament is beginning. Michigan State, that's my team. So I'll be watching them. They're kind of hit or miss this year. So I think as far as they go, I'll be happy. And then golf season is coming in. We watched the Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass, which I've played before. So that was fun to watch that. That was really cool. And we got the Masters within a month. I'm in heaven. I love this time of year. So the windows are open. Sports are coming on. Opening days around the corner. It's fantastic. I don't even want to talk about finances. I'm just, let's talk about this.
Well, I was going to say, windows were open. They're not really open today, as we're really hunkered down today. It's getting a little sporty out, speaking of sports, with the weather going on today. But let me back up just a second, because I actually did want to settle in on your comment about let's just talk about sports for the rest of the podcast. We absolutely, I mean, this is my favorite type of podcast when we're going to get into what does retirement actually look like, or what could it look like. And when you're living your best life and you're talking through baseball and golf and basketball, and I know you're going to be out on the course yourself here, if not already by the time this airs, you're soon thereafter. But as you retire, these are things that you're choosing to do, and you're choosing to do them and fund your resources that way to live your best life. And that's amazing. And that's the kind of episode that we're about to talk about today. Cannot wait.
That's a really good way to tie it together. Except I made the mistake with this retirement that now I'm busier doing what I'm doing now than what I was in the Army. So,
but you love what you do.
I kind of failed that. I do love what I do. It is a lot of fun. So, but thanks for pulling us back on the rails there, Omen, because we do have that topic to get to. But before that, we've got a few items to take care of, beginning with today's date in history. Today's date in history, we're going back all the way to 1775. It's March 23rd, 1775.
That's right. 1775. Big year for the Marine Corps. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah, good point. Oh, in the Army too, in the Army. But it was also, in addition to it being a big year for the Marine Corps and the Army, it was a big year for our nation's founding. And that was also the year in which, March 23rd, Patrick Henry gave the famous speech in which he dropped the line, "Give me liberty or give me death," which became a rallying cry for the American Revolution. It was delivered at the Second Virginia Convention in Richmond just weeks before the Revolutionary War broke out. He was trying to inspire the convention and his fellow colonists to join him, and fight back against Britain and become independent country. So that is such an important line. Give me liberty, give me death. It's just, I heard it obviously a million times, but didn't know exactly when it was said. So it's kind of nice to learn about that.
I'm ready for a revolution right now. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, shot out of a cannon. All right. Well, despite your excitement, we do have one more item to take care of, and that is this week's headline. Today's headline comes to us courtesy of Veronica Dagher, Dagher, from the Wall Street Journal, in an article that she wrote titled "How Homeowners Are Turning to Adjustable Rate Mortgages." In the article, she says, Americans are reconsidering adjustable rate mortgages as a way to cut the cost of buying a home in the short term. Quote, borrowers turning to ARMs are betting that they can refinance before their fixed rate ends, typically after 5, 7, or 10 years. What are your first thoughts about this, Omen?
Well, we did talk. Well, number one, actually, let me just back up just a second. I wanted to say I'm proud of you, Rob. You did really good with that last name.
I've been trying. I studied.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my first thought goes to the fact that in the headline itself, we're reading about betting, that borrowers turning to ARMs are betting that they can refinance before their fixed rate ends, typically after 5, 7, or 10 years. And so to me, this is it's a gamble, right? You have no idea whether or not an ARM is going to work out for you. What the article also talks about is ARMs were kind of the problem that led us into 2008, right? Like there's a lot more regulation around ARMs these days, but still they are a little risky.
I would disagree with it that it was what led us into the crisis. I think it was something else, but it was definitely fuel on the fire, that's for sure. Because the problem existed for affordability, and then ARMs was one of the solutions that got people in, including also no interest mortgages, et cetera, or no interest only mortgages.
Wild. Which still exist.
Crazy. It should be outlawed. Yeah, so ARMs, you're leading in a really good way. I think that's the majority of how folks look at it. They don't know, or especially now, like how we're going to be able to afford a house. Well, here's a solution that is semi-normal, like scare quotes, normal, or readily available. Another solution to help lower your payment in the near term, 5, 7, or 10 years, in order to afford the house that you desire. Because the justification is the housing market's too expensive, which we know. So here are these solutions in order to get you into that home.
What I'm drawing from this is when somebody says, what are my payments going to be? They're not actually looking at the holistic picture of what is the mortgage going to cost me, but they're looking at this from what are my payments going to be? And they're looking at it from the short term. So they're almost intentionally putting on these blinders that at 5, 7, or 10 years, something could go sideways. And if it goes sideways, you're playing with your house here. Like this isn't a small matter. It's not like they're going to repossess your car, which also is a big deal, but you could lose your home in this.
That's the catastrophic end if you do this wrong, for sure, but it's a possibility. I'm okay with the payment focused side of it because when it comes to a mortgage, something you're going to be paying for that long, 15 to 30 years, then yeah, the payment does matter. Your cash flow matters for that long of a period. When it comes to like a car or something like that, I'm a little more like, it doesn't really matter that much. Cash flow matters, sure, but I'm more interested in how it affects my overall wealth. With a home, I'm a little bit more, I guess, open to the idea that the cash flow matters and your mortgage payment matters. Let me ask you this. If there is trouble built into an ARM, and you're considering it, maybe what's the best way to consider it maybe on a reasonable level? Or is there a way?
I think there's a reasonable level, but first understanding what the risk is. And I don't want to disagree with you about the cash flow payment side of things, but that's if you know what the payments are for the next 15 or 30 years, however long your mortgage is. With the ARM, what's the dangers about the ARM? We keep mentioning 5, 7, and 10 years. What happens at 5, 7, and 10 years? Well, that's when the adjustable side of the adjustable rate mortgage actually kicks in. And so, yes, you might be having a decent payment now and it looks great on paper, but what happens when you get to 5, 7, or 10 years? Do you know what the rate is going to be? You're gambling, especially today, because we've got this recency bias of interest rates that were super low for a really long time. We might actually be settling into the new norm of rates, and rates might not be actually going any lower. Maybe they're going to go up a little bit. I don't know what's going to happen in 5, 7, or 10 years, but your mortgage rate is going to adjust to whatever those rates are. And so maybe that's what we ought to focus in on, is what is the gamble people are actually taking when they take on an ARM. Well, they're gambling that they're going to be able to refinance at a lower rate sometime before they hit that 5, 7, or 10-year mark, or they're going to sell the house, or I don't know. Is there another option?
You actually started to get the nuts and bolts of it. Now, reminded we didn't really bring that up yet. So maybe we should real quick. ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, is presented to the borrower and offers usually a lower payment, a lower interest rate up front. So that initial, if like 5, 7, or 10 years, whatever it is, you have a lower payment that's fixed for that amount of the time. But then after that, now you're subject to the rates that are in the market. So like you said, if interest rates go up, your payment's going to start going up. And it just every 6 months usually?
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months, yeah. So if interest rates are higher when your initial term expires, your payment's going to go up. If it goes down, then it might go down. So you never know. But that speaks back to the gambling side, the speculating side of things. I think those are the two most common reasons. Well, first, the initial one is like, how do we afford this house? That's kind of like usually the most common reason to consider these. But the two you mentioned, that A, you're going to be able to refinance before that initial term is up, or you're going to sell the house before that initial term is up. I guess if there's something that like for sure that's going to happen, then I guess, but I don't know why, if it's worth the trade-off of the unknown. Perhaps you have a trust fund that's going to, you're going to hit the age at which your beneficiary status in the trust fund matures, and you're going to get this giant lump of money from the trust fund, and you'll be able to pay off the house. So yeah, might as well pay lower rates in the meantime. I don't really know what the other ones are. I think if we back this up, the way you should come at this is buy a house if you can afford the 30-year fixed mortgage on it. Okay. So start with the 30-year fixed. Yes, we can afford this payment. Now, then look at the ARMs if you want to, if you really, really want to, or if you have a reason to. But if the difference in affording the house is an ARM, in other words, you can't afford the 30-year fixed, and so you turn to the ARM in order to afford the house, then I think you're in danger.
Yeah, and I'd take that one step further, because even if you can afford the 30-year fixed mortgage, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna actually first look at a 5, 7, or 10-year ARM because the rate is cheaper, I can get a lower payment up front. The other risk is, what if you can't refinance when you hit that 5, 7, or 10-year mark? What if you are in a position where, I don't know, your credit worthiness is lower than what's acceptable to get a better rate at that time? I would say if you are eligible and can afford a fixed mortgage rate, do that. If you're looking at an ARM and you understand those risks and you have a backup plan for what if it goes sideways, because ultimately when you walk into an ARM, you should walk into it with an assumption that you're going to blow through that 5, 7, or 10-year mark and you're going to wind up paying something else. Like, have that already in your mind. Do not assume that you're going to be able to get out of it.
Amen.
Once you make that assumption, if you've got a couple of backup plans, like you said, Rob, you've got a trust fund somewhere, or you've got some other kind of liquidity that you can help get you out of that situation if that's what it comes down to, then great, use that. But yeah, I would not do. I think the most risky solution in this is if you can only afford the house using an ARM, don't do it. Stay away.
Perfectly put. I like at the end there how you kind of steered into my final point, which probably won't apply to most folks listening. But, I think a lot of wealthy people tend to use ARMs. I would assume that would be a good use of it. Like if you have all the cash set aside in a brokerage account, it's invested and it's growing, and you have enough just to pay for the house outright, and you want to go for an ARM to kind of do the arbitrage between the difference in your investing and what's going to give you versus the payment on the home. And yeah, in 5 years, if the rates goes through the roof, then okay, we'll just pay off the house, instead, or you keep it based on what's happening with the market. So that gives maybe like wealthy people some advantages of a lower interest rate initially for the initial time, and then it gives them options of flexibility in the future. But I do want to hammer home that point you said. If you're using the ARM to get into the house, not for you, no bueno. So proceed with caution. With that behind us, it's time to get into the meat of the episode. Omen, today I'm really excited because we're talking about little R retirement. We're talking about that time.
Topic.
Yeah, when that time that the military affords us this opportunity at 20 years in, where usually service members are, 40 to 50 years old. Before you hit the big R retirement, the permanent retirement maybe later in life, you've got this window of time where your options become really wide open. And a lot of times we face this like with a lot of nerves and anxiety of what and if. Today we're going to be coming at it from a different view. We're going to be coming at it from the view of possibilities, right? Like what are your options and how do you pursue your options to fit what matters most to you and be able to fulfill your dreams and afford the life that you want to live?
This is hands down my most favorite episode that we could ever record. And we've done this on multiple occasions. We've spoken with Brandon Lovinger about this very topic, that this theory of retirement. There's so many false leads to our thoughts about retirement. We say that we're going to retire, like we're going to stop working. That is false. Nobody stops working, particularly those in the military. They don't stop working. You just move your attention to doing something else. And yeah, maybe that something else doesn't necessarily look like work because it's something you've always been curious about and you just enjoy maybe going on a bike ride or, volunteering at the local shelter or something else like that. It's still considered work, but you love doing it, so it doesn't seem like work. So if we had the option to do that when you're 44 years old instead of 65 years old, would you? Absolutely. And so for our pensioners out there or soon to be pensioners out there, when you can get a check for $40, $50, $60, $70,000 for breathing, that's all you have to do is breathe and you have a check.
Yeah.
That's it. Like the options are unbelievable. But Rob, you said it best. There's a lot of stress and anxiety when it comes to believing that check is going to be enough.
Let's start with the thing you brought up. Let's start with continuing working. Okay, so that usually involves getting another job and jumping into another career. Okay, that's kind of like the most common, like, hey, I've been working for the military for so long, now I'm just going to do another career before the big art retirement. First thing to emphasize here, there's nothing wrong with this, right? In fact, a lot of the solutions we're talking about, there's nothing wrong with these, right? It's how it fits into your life and the purpose that you desire in the life you want to live. So we're talking about these as options. So with the second career, what I like to call the encore career, there's a lot of thought patterns that arrive that bring service members and pensioners to this decision. The first one being, I'm too young to retire. Okay, because you're in the mid 40s and you're too young. Like you said, you're probably right if you're thinking I'm too young to retire. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to enter into another contract career with either, as a government contractor or staying in the field that you're really good at in the military and just whatever. But it does mean you're probably too young to not be focused on some degree of purpose. In fact, I would say until probably the day you die, you're too young to not be focused on some purpose to some degree. So when you start this thing and that idea formulates in your mind of like the second career, you should start with some questions. What gives you purpose? What are you curious about? What have you always wanted to do, but you never had time for? Maybe start with those and then see where that leads you.
I always encourage pre-retirees 2 to 3 years from retirement to begin getting a little bit selfish. And it's hard to do. Trust me, it's hard to do when you go into the office and the very things on your task list are serving other people, serving the mission, making sure all the tasks get done, making sure your people are taken care of. In those last 2 to 3 years from retirement, though, there's got to be a little bit of inward focus to be curious. Let yourself dream just a little bit that there might be something beyond the military that you're excited about, that you want to try out. Because if you wait until you are already at military retirement, you can still make this choice, but it's a lot more difficult because you're kind of at the junction point where you're now losing this salary, and you've got some choices to make that are less informed than what they could have been a couple of years ago had you started down this path.
You're leading right to the next thing, because we're starting with the dream big. What do you dream yourself doing, right? What, for me, I'm playing in the PGA Tour, right? So that's where I start with, right?
That's right.
It just happens to be financially lucrative as well, so it's not a problem. No. So you do start with that, like, what do I want to do? Like, what do you dream? You dream big. Start to be selfish with your thoughts of like how you picture yourself moving forward. Next comes, let's be more realistic about it too, okay? And there is an intentional way we've structured this. Lead with purpose and meaning, and now bring into the realistic expectations of income, okay? Now, there's some good ways to think about the income you need and some other maybe less useful ways. I think one of the biggest myths of the little R retirement is the thought that I need to replace my military income.
100%.
A lot of people frame it this way. A lot of people go into it because you've had this income, so now you have to replace that income. It's a reasonable place to start, but it might not necessarily serve what you actually need. Remember, you've got your pension. If you're retiring, you likely have a pension that's significant. You might have some VA disability that's unknown until you get out, but you might have some. You also have some tax advantages coming to you, possibly from the state, et cetera, or based on the disability rating you've got. And also remember, you may or may not need to continue contributing to your retirement accounts. Maybe you've been slamming money into your TSP until age 45 and now you're retiring. An honest look at that TSP balance might reveal that it will grow sufficiently to age 65 when you need it, or 59 or 60, whatever. So you might not have to save into a retirement account anymore. So there's a lot of things that can adjust the what do I need. So instead of focusing on what have I always been paid up to this point, maybe we turn it around. It's like, okay, well, what do I actually need to make this happen?
I'm going to wrap this up rather quickly because we have this tendency to focus on money as the goal. Money is not the goal. Money is a tool to achieve the goal. But we have this pay scale that's set. We already know what our next pay scale is when we hit our 18-year mark and our 20-year mark, and we know what we're going to get paid. Mentally, we already account for the money that we're going to make in the future, and it's already spent. It's already spent down the road. Again, 2 to 3 years out, it's time to play in the retirement sandbox, and we look at our expenses and
Bingo.
What is actually important to us to live the way that we would like to live. Your lifestyle could actually demand that, yes, you need a larger income to support yourself into the future beyond the military. But you also could realize, like, wow, I could actually live a pretty simple lifestyle. I don't have a lot of overhead, so maybe my pension goes a lot longer and a lot further than I thought it would. Moving on.
No, that's perfect. We've said this how many episodes so far? Have we brought this up?
Yeah.
Know your expenses.
Almost everyone.
Right? Because just to hammer that point home, we've done enough retirement models where we see the greatest indicators of future financial success exist between the income and your expenses. And right now, we necessarily can't control the income of our little r because we're trying to decide on what to do and try to figure that out. But you can certainly control your expenses, or actually refine that a little bit. Just know your expenses. Mm-hmm. Start with that.
Just
like,
know 'em.
Yeah, I think if you take an honest look at what you're actually spending, then maybe it might reveal some opportunity of like, oh, maybe I don't need the $80,000 to $120,000 a year job. Maybe the beginning career in a new field at $45,000 to $60,000 will do the trick, right?
Yeah.
So start with the need and the expenses. I love that.
Rob, there's one additional point to this off the backside of what you just said about you have this military pay scale, you've been working really hard, you are a pro, at what you do. You look around the contracting field and you know that you could get 2-3 times the salary that you're getting right now. It is tempting to think, now I can finally get paid what I'm worth. It's tempting, but money is not the goal. That's the thing. Like, yes, if you need that income, it's great that that income is there. But the pure thought of now I can get paid what I'm worth, it's a dangerous thought in my opinion, because you could be setting yourself up for a lifestyle that maybe is not exactly what you thought it was. Maybe I've known so many people who thought, I'm done with traveling. Maybe I'll just travel 10%. Next thing you know, 155 days of the year, they're gone.
Yeah.
The pay's great. Their stress level is terrible. It never adds up. You are going to pay the price for the income that you get.
I don't want to tear your argument apart, but I think you're coming from a really wise...
Tear it up.
Well, that was your experience. I mean, you liked what you did, but you didn't love it. You didn't love it as much as the idea of doing something else, right? If the Army if there was like a government contractor that would have hired me to do what I did for the Army, I would have jumped at that in a heartbeat. I mean, I loved what I did for the Army. So
do it.
But that's your point. That's your point, is start with what you want to do. So if you happen to love your job in the Army and you know that there's a very lucrative contracting deal waiting you where you could literally go home, take off the uniform, put a suit and tie on and come back in and do the same thing, and you love doing it, then yeah, awesome. Now, not only are you doing what you want to do, you're getting paid very handsomely to do it. So I think I just want to kind of refine that point, because you went through this. You were like, I like what I do. I love this other idea better. Like, I really feel the pull and the purpose to do this other thing. You could have, from what you told me, you could have like done that, switched around, turned around and come back and been a contractor and been very financially successful at that. But instead you wanted to build this thing and create it, serve other people, and build a very lucrative thing on your own.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question as we put an exclamation point on this. Is what did you just do in terms of prioritizing money versus what you want to do?
No. Yeah. We put what we want to do and what brings us passion and purpose and meaning in front of the money.
Right. Every single time. Mm-hmm. So if contracting is literally, that's what you're passionate about, go do that thing. Mm-hmm. Absolutely go do that thing. So I do have some thoughts in my mind. Like, I studied air defense command and control for 25 years, went up against 2 enemies that did not have a significant air defense threat, or offensive threat, I should say. Yeah. And now we're in Iran and they have a somewhat significant threat, and my skill set is being used. And there are feelings there that, man, I could have been involved in that. I am not passionate about it, but I absolutely would have enjoyed that, I think, giving my services in that way. I don't know. That's a tough one, but yeah, money's got to come last. Yeah.
Yeah. Follow your passion. Unless your passion is drinking tequila all day, every day, then maybe find some other passion or purpose.
I've known some people that have that.
Yeah.
They have that passion. Yeah.
Yeah. Check your purpose. Check on it before you dive into it. That's really interesting that you mentioned that. I have the feeling coming up that the nation's 250th this summer, when I see the Army band out there celebrating the 250th, I'm going to have some FOMO a little bit.
But it's all some FOMO.
Yeah, it's all in support of a good thing. So way to bring that home. This episode is brought to you by the Military Financial Advisors Association.
MFAA is a global network of independent, fee-only fiduciary financial advisors who specialize in serving military families.
And we're not just highlighting it. Omen and I are members ourselves, so we know firsthand what they stand for.
That's right. Every member of MFAA is either active duty, a veteran, or a military spouse, so they truly understand the unique financial challenges that come with military life.
Plus, every advisor must hold or be actively pursuing the CFP designation, which is the gold standard in financial planning.
Well, let's put that together. When you choose an advisor with MFAA, you are getting a professional who won't sell you a product, who knows the military life, and will plan using your hard-earned military benefits.
Whether you're navigating a step out of the military after 4 years, a military retirement, or a transition into a work-optional lifestyle, MFAA advisors speak your language.
Visit militaryfinancialadvisors.org to find an advisor who fits your mission.
MFAA, real advice, real experience.
This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. All investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Information and opinions provided within the Fiscal Foxhole do not necessarily reflect official positions or opinions of the Military Financial Advisors Association or its members. Consult a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions.
I want to move on to a different topic of conversation regarding the little r, and that's the myth versus reality of what military retirement is worth. It's no secret that you get the pension, the VA disability, all the other benefits that you've been receiving a lot of benefits. You get newer benefits, different benefits. Some of them changed. And if you begin receiving the pension and the disability, you know what the dollar amount is worth month to month, right? But let's talk about the real value of that military pension and what it allows us to do. Like you astutely pointed out, this is money you get paid to breathe, to wake up in the morning. Right.
Mouth breathe.
It's the hardest.
Mouth breathe. Not just breathe, mouth breathe.
Fair enough. You're talking to a soldier here. Yeah, I got it. So this is the money. This is the money you get paid to wake up in the morning and do whatever you want, whether it be work or, tequila or whatever. This is the money you're going to get paid. Now, you and I have done enough projections or retirement projections. What do I always say that a military pension is in a retirement plan? It's like a cheat code.
Oh,
it's a cheat code.
It is a cheat code.
Because we've done retirement analysis for folks that don't have a pension beginning at age 42, which is crazy, versus folks that might receive one later on in life versus people that don't get one at all. And the numbers are really different because what the value of the pension or the VA disability, everything else, it creates this foundation of support. Your starting line is so much higher than everybody else's. It gives you that boost of options that you could pursue whatever you wanted to do.
For the military retiree, they're actually having to get used to something that most 65-year-olds or thereabouts have to get used to as well, because we're used to getting some kind of salary for the working portion of our lives. You just get this chunk of money, and that's what you have to live on for your lifetime. But once you move into retirement, it's not a chunk of money per se. It's usually layers of income. It's like Shrek and the layers of the onion, right? Like you have your Social Security. You've got some retirement investments that you use. You've got, in this case, a pension. And you have these different layers of income that actually make up the full layer of income that pays for all of your expenses. But military retirees have to get used to that in a good way, have to get used to that thought process of they're never going to go to zero on the income. The pension is going to drop them off somewhere at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of income every single year, inflated out into time until the day that they die. And that's a very powerful thing.
I want to highlight a few parts of that argument that you just made. One being the inflated part. That's huge. A lot of pensions are not inflated at all. Military pensions and disability, they're all inflated. So it's going to feel the same as you carried on through the rest of your life. The other thing is you're speaking about these things as they're reasonably guaranteed to continue until the end of your life. Of course, that's how they're designed. They're designed to continue. But when it comes to pensions and stable types of income going for the rest of your life, there's always some uncertainty of whether or not the funding will be there. This is the government we're talking about.
Yeah.
They have proven time over time that they are willing to print whatever amount of money it takes to fulfill its obligations. The common one I hear is Social Security. Like it's not, people talk about like the Social Security, that money's not set aside. It's all mingled with everything else. Like if Social Security went away, I would be right next to you, Omen, with the pitchfork, like, where's my money? Disclaimer, it's not a threat. But in other words, you can reasonably count on this stuff for the rest of your life and count on it and go ahead and make decisions based on it, I feel.
Yeah. And if they're going to make changes, if the government's going to make changes, you can expect them to step you into whatever it is it's going to be, right? So with the military pension, that's why we have the blended retirement system, is because the government had to figure out a way to make it less expensive for them. So now they have a 40% at 20 years that steps up 2% every year after that. Whereas Social Security, I don't think Social Security is going to go away. I think that we're going to see some adjustments made for people in their 40s and earlier and younger that maybe the full retirement age goes up, or maybe your benefits go down in some form or fashion. But like, there's going to be slight adjustments, but I don't think that we're going to see pensions or Social Security, for that matter, go to zero.
Oh gosh, no, I wouldn't think that. And my question to you, that's a very valid point, but I mean, you're in mid 40s. I'm older, almost 50. Would you expect any of those changes to happen to you or me for either of those things at all?
For Social Security, I think 40s, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think 40s is probably on the fence of where changes might take place. We'll see here in the next 5 years or so. But I would say if you're in your 30s and younger, I might expect some changes to your Social Security.
Yeah, that's my point. I think the younger you are, the more vulnerable you are to possible changes. Because as I make these changes, it makes no sense to do it to people that are counting on this in the near future. And as much as I hate to admit it, buddy, like, it's nearer than we think, in our age. But, if you're doing this to people that are in their teens or 20s, it's like, I mean, the future's so wide open and unknown for them anyway. It's like, okay, well, they can adjust or plan accordingly. We're diving into the next point, which I like, because this is, I think, the most valuable part of the episode. We're talking about how to support yourself in the little R retirement, the bridge years before you get to big R. When I spoke to you probably like a month ago about this idea, to me, this was the genesis of this episode, is how do we wisely navigate financially? Obviously we start with the purpose, but then how do we navigate it financially between little R to big R retirement?
Yeah, this is one of the most exciting parts of our conversation that we get to have. And it's why it's so scary, right? Because you have this pension. There are some unknowns here because you have to wait until the day you retire, at least, to figure out what your disability, if anything, is going to be. So that's another source of income that's kind of an unknown, just sitting out there a little bit. But before we dive into this, I think it's worthwhile, because as part of this step of faith of walking out into what little R retirement looks like, I wrote an article about the value of a pension and how difficult it is for us to see what that value is, because it's not hanging out in an investment account somewhere. It's not on your net worth statement, the fact that you've got this pension. And we actually got a listener question about this very thing, about how do you calculate what your pension is worth, as almost a way to make you feel better, knowing that you've got this present value calculation of what your pension is worth today that makes you comfortable stepping out in faith that suddenly you've got the income layer you need to start your little R retirement in the way that you want to do it.
I don't mind this tangent. This is good. So when the person reached out to you, how did they do it? Or did they have an idea of how they created their present value?
Yeah, I mean, their question was really along the lines of how do you calculate, if you have a $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year pension, how do you calculate what it's worth today? Right. If you assume that you're going to live from age 45, you retired at age 45, and you're going to live to age 85. So you've got 40 years, and it was just a simple calculation of whatever, $40,000 times 40 years. Is that how you figure it out?
Oh, okay. So what's the name of the article, by the way, that you wrote? Because we can link it in the show notes.
Yeah, the name of the article is The Military Retirement Pension, How Guaranteed Income Can Change Your Investment Risk Strategy. And the whole point behind the article is that you can actually, in some cases, like, I'm not telling you to go out and take more risk, but the pension certainly changes the way that you can look at your investment risk.
I wrote the same thing. And it's great. So I'll link mine too. I'll link both of these. Mine's pension. It's called your pension and your portfolio.
Mine's better.
I like. Hey, mine. Yours might be better. I have a better title.
Fine.
Yeah. I think this is super important. I'm glad we took this tangent. This is so important because you said a lot of people doesn't appear on your net worth. I do. I mean, it's a real income generating asset that is creating income in my life, and it is worth something. I'm sorry. Like, that's as real as it gets. So, I don't know how much we want to get into the math. It's not, you don't just add up the payments for the rest of your life. You don't do that. It's very algebra 2-ish, I would say. If you did algebra 2 in high school, you could probably handle it. I did include it in my article. So I don't know if did you include it in your article?
I did not include that in my article.
Okay.
Rob.
I don't mean to dunk on you so hard in real time, but no, I mean, but you could look it up. If you did a present value calculation of an increasing annuity or something like that, you could probably find it. I did embed it in my article. You could do it as well if you want to do the math. But the general idea is, yes, we are taking the sums of your future payments, but every single one, we're actually deflating it based on investment rates, not inflation rates, but investment to today's dollars. So the idea is, what would the government have to pay you today to be equal to the amount of payments you're going to get for the rest of your life? So if you added together your expected future payments, that might be $2 million. Well, you do the present value calculation, it might be $800,000, because the assumption is you're going to be investing this and getting a return, et cetera. But that's what they would have to pay you to be equivalent. I love this idea, and especially the way you said it, adding it to your portfolio, treating it like the income side of your portfolio so you can create more risk when it comes to your long-term investments. We're way off the rails, but this is such an important point. Such an important point.
I do want to note, if you put this present value calculation on your net worth statement, do not go out and buy a bass boat.
Yeah.
Do not think, oh, wow, I've got $1.6 million on my portfolio that I didn't see there before. It's time to go out and buy a bass boat.
Or when you apply for your arm to afford a mortgage you can't afford. This is not part of the balance sheet when it comes to that. Good point. This is more theoretical as you watch your net worth grow. That's really funny. Yeah. All right, back to what we were talking about. How much do we actually need to be work optional when it comes to this? We've got this, now we have a pension that we know it's worth a ton of money, but it's feeding us every year. We get this guaranteed income. What's the other side? I know we already talked about it. What's the most important thing we have to know?
Yeah, you have to know your expenses.
Exactly, right? So we've already talked about purpose. We're starting with that. What do we want to do? Now we need to take a hard look at our expenses. What do we actually need? Now, and also, do we really, really need, can we move to a different apartment, rent a different house, buy a different house, downsize, sell the car, one car because we don't need to drive anymore, et cetera. Take a really hard look at our expenses, and that'll help shape what the additional income we might need, if we need it at all. You might not need any additional income, well, especially if a healthy VA disability drops on top of you. Start with that. So that's where we begin. Now begins the path forward. We've got our purpose. We have the income that we figured out once we retired. And now we have our expenses. We have to bring those together. What's our path forward?
Yeah, I would say, number one, if we can be living in a van down by the river, you'll have no expenses at all. I mean, it's almost an expense-free life. Yeah. Living in a van down by the river.
I'm going to live in a box down by the river. A really nice box. Maybe 2 boxes glued together. Have a different room. Have a bathroom and a living room. All right. So let's say you do need some income and you're not quite sure how to marry all of this together. The obvious one is a new job, right? The next career, right? That's the obvious one. You can also look for part-time work in a new field. You can take the time, kind of like that first year. Maybe you don't necessarily have to save or something. Maybe you've got an emergency fund, got the pieces in place. The income might not be right, but maybe spend a year doing just a new thing that you're curious about. Okay. Take that short-term, i.e. kind of lifetime type sabbatical for a year and see if that'll work. Start a business. If you're crazy, like you and me, pour a whole bunch of equity into a new venture and see how it goes. Luckily for us, it's working out, but that's an option as well. That has to be taken with a grain of salt. A lot more to consider with starting a business. But there's another answer here that is investments. Okay. And this is where it's going to, I think, get really interesting. You can use investments to help you bridge this gap.
I forget which episode we talked about this. It might have been our last episode where we said it's totally possible for you to overfund your retirement accounts. And this is why.
Right.
The most flexible account you have to bridge this little r to big R retirement is your taxable brokerage account, because there's no penalties for taking anything out. It still has tax advantages and long-term capital gains. So if you feel like you are overfunding your retirement accounts, you might actually be overfunding your retirement accounts. But so your taxable account is a great way to bridge you from little r to big R.
I have clients that are going through this right now. They're young, mid 40s, and they're looking at a potential 10 to 15 year run where they want to be a little bit more passion based about their projects that might not provide the income that they would otherwise want, but they're really passionate about. They're leading with passion. I love it. This is exactly what they've done. They've spent their whole military careers slamming money into their TSP. Awesome. Great. Now they're super well prepared for retirement, but not the little R retirement. They're more than prepared for big R retirement. By the time they get to age 59 and a half, they're set. They don't have to put another cent into their TSP and they're good to go. But now we face the challenge of what do we do between now and then? While their expenses are going to remain fixed, they've got very reasonable expenses, but the pension income might not cover those fixed expenses that they need. So what we're doing now, before in the next 3 years, instead of the TSP, they are putting everything into a taxable brokerage account, and they're really putting a ton of money aside. When I had this conversation with them, it's a very tough thing to consider, especially if you're robust savers into a TSP, to suddenly turn that dial off and go, okay, now I'm going to put everything into a taxable brokerage. But again, like you said, it is tax efficient if you do it right.
Yeah. So the next count is, and I want to take this in like levels of complexity, I think, because the next easiest one, I think, Rob, is probably your IRA and probably your Roth IRA.
Good. Yes. Yep.
Right. Because you've got contributions, whatever contributions you have in there, you can actually get your contributions back out with no penalties and no taxes on that. There's an assumption there that you've tracked what your contributions were throughout the year. So you know, or throughout the years, I should say. Yeah. So you know how much you can actually pull back out if you need Roth out of that. But that's probably the next easiest bucket to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. And hopefully you've been doing that for years, because by the time if you retire from the military, if you're dual income and maybe your spouse is earning a lot of money, you might not be eligible to contribute to a Roth, or it might be too late to kind of set this up. But that's a really good point. Roth provides a lot of flexibility that we're valuing at this time.
The other part of Roth, I think, would be your conversions, right?
Okay. So you're talking about a conversion ladder sort of thing?
Yeah.
That takes a lot of planning.
So it does take a lot of planning. I don't know where this falls in the level of complexity between what we're about to talk about after Roth conversions, but I don't know. Maybe we're starting to dip our toes into the complexity side of where do you get income from to bridge.
Well, let's talk about it, because you can certainly do it. Yeah, Roth conversions are an answer. The problem with this one, though, is you really have to have a lot of forethought to this. You have to start 5 years before little R starts.
Yes.
Yeah, because what Omen's talking about is a Roth conversion ladder. So the idea is let's start with the mandatory requirements. You have to have a traditional IRA and or a Roth IRA. You have to have those in place already, and they have to be pretty well funded to do this. The idea is, let's say you're 5 years out from your military retirement and you have an income goal beginning in that little R stage. So you can do a Roth conversion. We're not talking TSP. Okay, we're talking IRA. You cannot do this in your TSP. You can convert to Roth into TSP. That's not what we're talking about. This is only for IRAs. You can do a Roth conversion to a Roth IRA. That conversion begins a 5-year clock, begins on that day. And then the next year, do the same thing. And that conversion gets a 5-year clock. And the next year, you do the same thing. So you're doing this 5-year series of Roth conversions, each with their own independent 5-year clock. Now, when you hit little R retirement in that first year, now you can actually pull out the amount you converted from the traditional to the IRA 5 years ago. You can pull all that out penalty and tax-free and use it as income for the year if you need to.
Yeah, Rob, I think we have to come back to this requires pre-planning to know what kind of income you might need on top of your pension to support you. And you have to start doing that planning 5 years in advance.
Right.
So
hard.
That's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard.
So I imagine if you have the ability to do this, again, you'd have to have this in a traditional IRA to start with. Okay, if you don't have that, then you can't do this. Then you would have to just imagine, I think I'll need $40,000 extra in that first year of a little R, so I'll convert $40,000 this year. And remember the tax stuff you have to pay. You have to pay income tax on that this year. So there's a lot of wrinkles to this that make it a challenging process, but one that's possible for sure. I see your complexity in the Roth conversion ladder, and I raise you the complexity of the 72T.
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. So There are a few ways that you can touch your TSP, 401k, et cetera, before you turn that age at 59 and a half. I don't know. Do you ever plan on this with any client? Either this or the rule of 55?
I actually did do planning for 72T for a client. And so Rule 72T, it's otherwise known as substantially equal periodic payments, is a way for you to receive distributions from your 401k, 403b prior to age 59 and a half without paying the penalty. It's a tricky one, though, because you have to receive those payments for a minimum of 5 years or until you reach age 59 and a half, whichever one is later. Mm-hmm. Whichever one is later.
Yeah.
So even if you start this at age 56 or age 57, you're going to have to keep going with these payments, or else you will owe all of the penalty payments back to when you started this.
Yeah. And you're locked in. You got to keep going.
You're locked in.
Yeah, you can't change this. So there's a few drawbacks to this. Number one, the formula is set for you, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. You can't, it's not like you can go, hey, I need 25 grand. Once you start this, there's a dedicated formula based on the value of that account that you're going to get this set payment now, and you can't turn it off, or you need to keep going unless you're going to get heavily penalized. I think the biggest drawback is missing out on the growth that occurs in your 50s, right? You've seen this, right? If you've been doing 401k, TSP, et cetera, a lot of times for a lot of plans, it starts to hockey stick there in the 50s. The growth before you hit 63, 65 is really substantial if you've been investing for a long time. It's the difference between when you're in your young 40s, you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to retire. What people fail to see is that growth that explodes before they need it, almost at the right time. If you do the 72T, you could be drawing funds out of that account and missing out on that really great, huge growth in the meantime. So that's kind of like a hidden cost that's not evident, I think, and it should be carefully considered. But it's a possibility.
Yeah, if this is something you're considering, I would highly recommend linking up with a professional to kind of plan this out. Because if we go back to our point of money not being the goal, it's an instrument, it's a tool for you to achieve the goals. That hockey stick might actually not matter in the grand scheme of things. I get what you're saying, but it might actually not matter if the money is still there. If you do this 72T, you get the payments you need. You've now bridged yourself to big R retirement, and you're not going to outlive your money. Yeah, I guess it still works for you, right?
Yeah. Definitely worth taking a look at for sure. You should consider it, but also just consider the trade-offs of doing it versus maybe finding another short-term way to fund little R before you get to, let those investments grow and maybe provide for something else. But you're right. I mean, you can definitely do it. Last one's the rule of 55, which does apply for military. The catch with this one is you have to be leaving the military in the year you turn 55, right? So minimum age for, I guess, 54. But as long as you're turning 55 that year, I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking chaplains, like 09s?
Like we're talking some, and it's funny because we're just feeding into this, the fact that we think that 55-year-olds are old people. Yeah. They're not old people. In the military, though, they're ancient. Like they've got their walkers, they're walking around with their oxygen tanks, things like that. So I think you're going to find very few 55-year-olds leaving the military.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you entered late, I guess you could, because I think by the time when I went in, I think the minimum age was 34, 35. So it's possible. I guess you could. Maybe you did your little R before you entered the military, and now you're going to retire at age 55. You could do the rule of 55, which basically means you're allowed to touch your TSP in the meantime, and you can start withdrawing from your retirement funds. That's probably possible. If you've been investing wisely, you could probably take advantage of that. But again, limited to those that are leaving the military in the year you turn 55. I love this. I just want to bring it back one more thing. The brokerage account is so flexible. I love it so much. It's just the flexibility, liquidity of a brokerage account, because we talk about all the different restrictions, the 72T, rule of 55, the Roth conversion ladder, taking contributions out of your Roth IRA. The brokerage account, man, the limits are off, baby. You can just, as long, I mean, tax considerations are a thing, so you got to look at that. But really, that's the only limiting factor. is how it affects your bottom line tax wise. And oftentimes it's very favorable. So if you're young and you're listening to this, you're 25 years old and you're maxing out your TSP every year, good for you. Maybe it's time to also start to consider a brokerage account and start building some flexible wealth in.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're not telling you to put all your eggs in the taxable account brokerage basket.
No.
We're saying put an equal share. Right? Like we're balanced.
Yeah.
We're balanced across all your accounts here.
Yeah. Omen, we've tackled pretty much of the meat of everything we wanted to talk about. One more thing to consider is as you kind of go into this little R, as you start that first year, there's a number of ways that, there's a number of traps that we can face. There are a number of ways this can kind of go sideways. That you just need to be aware of and ready for, and just maybe have a tentative plan to deal with it. We talked about the disability payment. I know, there's a lot out there. People do this. They research what they expect to get. We do it. I've done it. But I remain flexible to and open to the idea that it might not be what I imagine, or it might not be in the first year because there's appeals processes. I might be able to go back and get more or whatever. But I'm open to the flexibility that might not be the case. So I actually, even on my budgets going to next year, I have like 5 different line items for the bottom line, depending on a whole range of ratings that I would get. And I just want to make sure they all look good. So that's one thing I'm already planning on. Another one might be that next career that you're really counting on. Maybe it doesn't have the income that you need. Maybe you look at the expenses you need and the income you need, and whatever the minimum amount of disability you can reasonably expect, maybe the income just quite isn't there. So now we're looking at the expenses. That maybe that's the plan. Maybe like, okay, well, what expense can I live without? Can I really do in order to pursue what I really want to do?
Yeah, I love the way that you're looking at this. You've got so many different COAs. I think looking at what the most conservative answer is what your pension is going to be. Mm-hmm. What can you do with that? And because you already know what your expenses are, what do you need then to meet those expenses? If you are walking into this first 6 months, first year of retirement, and the part-time job, the internship, the skill bridge, whatever it is that you're doing is not quite adding up to what you actually need. 2 options. It's what are your expenses? And we talked about that, putting it all on the table. And what do you actually need? Or 2, get a better paying job, which might actually turn into the government contract job or something along those lines. With the latter, though, a slight word of warning is once you're into that money, and I can't speak from experience here. I can speak from my own, well, I'll straight up call it my own fear, is exposure to that kind of money, I think would be difficult to walk away from. And so my fear was I would get into that amount of money knowing what I was actually wanting to do in my career, but not have the courage to step away from that amount of money to step into this new business where I'm paying to be in the business. Yeah, right. It's not paying me, right?
Idiot.
At least not now. So yeah, it's definitely a different line item to think about and think through in that first year. Can you actually walk away from that kind of income? Yeah.
Other items that present flexibility in that first year, there's always other part-time jobs. There's gig income that you could do. Like, hey, this is good for the first year, or this income's not enough for the first year, so let me go pursue this other thing real quick, like help assist Eats. Uber. Hey, you know what? Like, do it. Whatever it takes. If it's your passion, if it's worth it to you, and you're like, hey, I can swallow my pride and do, something that you weren't expecting to. Okay, great. Emergency funds can help, and brokerage, liquid savings, et cetera, can help. And maybe that first year doesn't look like you want it to, and you withdraw more from your brokerage account or liquid savings to get to the finish line. Okay. But just make that a smart, or walk into that decision with a lot of wisdom and decision rather than just trying to figure it out as you go. Hey, one closing question before we move on. I think the question to help frame your thought before you consider everything we've talked about so much, and a lot of it's baked in values and what you want in life. And also, not to be super melancholy about it, but man, you're over the hill.
Thanks, Rob.
I know that this,
you're older than I am.
I know what I'm doing now is the last thing I'm going to do. Well, I don't know it, but I'm pretty sure that this is it. Right. And that's great. I really love that. I think it's good. I'm excited about it. But let's start with this question. When you're facing that of like what you want to do, just think about this. It's one of the Kinder Life questions, or it's based in that, right? If your basic living expenses were already covered for life, what would you choose to do with your time? I think that's the seed that we're planting in the ground, and then we watch what grows.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, start with that. Okay, now how do we make that work? Are we adjusting expenses? Are we adjusting income? Are we adjusting our vectors of employment? What are we doing in order to get there? I hesitate to say the word guarantee. I guarantee if you start with that, you're probably going to end up in a good spot, or at least a good starting spot where you can pivot and find a better way to pursue it.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way to close it.
By the way, I really enjoyed talking about that stuff. I enjoyed doing a lot of episodes. I really like talking about that. So thank you for indulging me with this idea. But it's time to have some fun. Let's move into the trivia segment. This is our weekly humiliation session between Omen and myself, where we present
Got to humble each other, right?
obscure, ridiculous questions and expect the other person to answer correctly. And when they don't, we get to laugh and point at them and ridicule our podcast partner here for the public to enjoy. This week, it is my time to answer a question. So, Omen, I'm going to give it over to you to present the trivia question.
All right, for this one, Rob, I know nobody in podcast land can see this, but you have to go hands up because I got to make sure that you don't have a calculator here. All right, here we go.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. I got nothing. Okay, good.
A military retiree receives a $60,000 per year inflation-adjusted pension for life. If someone tried to buy a similar inflation-adjusted lifetime annuity from an insurance company, roughly how much money might they need to invest today to generate that same $60,000 annual income? Is it A, $250,000, B, $750,000, C, $1.5 million, or D, $2.5 million?
All right, I gotta have some fun with this. How old are we talking? When is he getting when is the person receiving the pension? How old are they? I'm not doing
specific.
the math. Oh man, okay. So if this is entered into like a generic question, I'm gonna assume it's probably close to retirement age. Okay, so not like I'm gonna assume it's not, because if it's 42 or 45, then we're definitely talking C, at least C. Right, it's the 1.5 million. But if we're talking age 65 or 60, maybe 60, like I've seen that kick in a lot, like 60, then it might be lower. What was B?
750,000.
Okay, and what's the required rate of return? What's the growth? Is it inflation adjusted? So all those are unknown, it sounds like. So it's definitely B or C, I think. Well, depending on reasonable assumptions. Because we are going to, this is a person probably in their 60s. I'm going to assume maybe a lifespan of 25 years because you didn't specifically say any growth rate or required return on alternative investments. I'm going to go more modest. And I am going to land on, is it B, is $750,000? All right, I'm going with B, $750,000 just based on the unknown variables that we don't have available.
I mean, Rob, the question itself did say a military retiree.
Oh, okay, back up. Okay. Well, then, as ChatGPT combs the internet, they'll probably land on military retirement present value calculation websites. They're out there. So now we're back to 1.5 million, which if I was doing that for somebody that's retiring at age 43, going out to age 49, it's going to be closer to 1.5. So now I will change my answer to C.
You are welcome, my brother. You can have this answer because I came back and I fixed it for you.
Yeah.
Military retiree.
I appreciate that. I assume that's correct.
That's correct.
Nice. I thank you for that. I mean, I feel like I deserve a little bit of help because I was asking other important questions like the required rate of return and growth rate, et cetera. So, and when you said military, I should have drawn it together. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I will gladly take the point because I'm going to need it. It might be my last one of 2026. Let's be honest.
We'll try.
Well, with that resounding victory, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Fiscal Foxhole. We hope you took away something you can use in your life. We appreciate you hanging out with us in the financial trenches. If you like our show, we'd appreciate if you wrote a review or better yet, shared it with a friend, which I know a lot of you have done. We watch the numbers and they're going up, and we would love it. We love the fact that more and more people are coming in to point and laugh at our ridiculous shenanigans every week. So with that, Omen, today, what are our key takeaways from today?
Key takeaway number 1, adjustable rate mortgages can be a useful tool, but they're a bet on the future. Interest rates, your income, and your life circumstances. If your plan depends on refinancing later, make sure you also have a plan for what happens if you can't. Key takeaway number 2, military retirement can create something most careers never do, the possibility of being work optional decades earlier than your peers. Before jumping into the next job right out of habit, take the time to understand what you already have and what you actually need. And key takeaway number 3, the real goal isn't to stop working, it's to gain the freedom to choose work that aligns with your purpose and your life. When your guaranteed income covers the basics, every career decision after that becomes intentional instead of necessary.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions you'd like answered on the show, please send us a note to fiscalfoxhole@gmail.com. If you heard something today that you'd like to discuss further, or you just want to dig deeper into your own financial game plan, both Rob and Omen are accepting new clients and always happy to chat. You'll find the links to their websites or to book appointments in the show notes. Rob Moore and Omen Quelvog are both registered investment advisor representatives. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. While they are both advisors, they are not your advisors. Therefore, nothing you hear on Fiscal Foxhole should be taken as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. For guidance tailored to your situation, please consult a qualified professional who understands your individual circumstances.
Hey, buddy, I need your help with something. Over the years in the Army, I've developed this kind of running bucket list of travel destinations that I've had in mind, right? Let's start with the military side of things. I mean, I know you're going to travel a lot because you PCS, deploy, et cetera. I didn't have any of those, so I was kind of left here stateside, which was nice. But in order to do anything outside the country, I had to fill out the OCONUS leave and do it we had to do 6 months ahead of time. And it was, kind of a pain. We did a few times. I traveled, but it was always kind of a pain to travel. Now, we threw kids in the equation. It was like, all right, well, we got to be,
it's tough.
Yeah, we're doing Disney World every 2 years, which is great. But I've got this running list of ideas, and now I've got the business, the flexibility to go. My kids are old enough, and I could probably do one of these by myself, or I could grab a kid or whatever and go with them as well. But I've got this little bucket list of travel spots, and I can't wait to explore them. And so you've traveled probably more than I have. You've lived in different places. I kind of want to get your feedback on some of these.
All right.
Number 1 on the list, Key West, the Florida Keys. I've never been.
Never been.
You've never been either. Okay.
No.
A long time ago, I watched this show called Bloodline on Netflix. Did you ever watch that?
Nope.
Okay. Good show, decent plot, decent writing, good acting. But the setting of it, I fell in love just with every picture was outside, and it was in the Florida Keys, the wind's blowing, it looked just so beautiful. So I've never been down there. I really want to go. I love the warm weather beaches. I really like it. But so that's probably number 1. I think that's easy enough. I actually hit up Costco Travel to see what a package would be. It's not bad. It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
So I might give that a shot. I might do that a solo thing. I might go down for 3 days. Why not? This is retirement. I've earned this. Maybe after tax season, probably. But
yeah, probably.
So that's one. Another one, Barcelona, the Sacred Family, the Basilica of the Sacred Family, that church. I really want to see that in person. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So Megan and I went to Valencia. We never did travel up to Barcelona. It was only a 2-hour trip, but we went to Valencia and we absolutely loved it there. And actually, that's where we discovered the secret code to getting me to shut down for a little while, like shut my brain off for a little while. And that was a warm beach. That's what I need, is a warm beach somewhere. I will fall asleep and I will just fry myself all day, but it is massively relaxing.
That's in Valencia.
That's why we didn't get to Barcelona.
Okay. Because you fell asleep and you had to go to the hospital.
Because I fell asleep on the beach. That's right.
You got burned.
Yeah.
So Valencia, okay, good. I can add that to the list. The other thing is, like, while I'm in Europe, it's kind of the same idea. Like, I'm more free now than I was, and I could just kind of, travel wherever I care to. Other ones like Iceland, I kind of want to, that seems like reasonable enough to go check it out. That's more expensive from what I understand. But the Alps, you ever seen the Italian or the Swiss Alps or the Italian Alps? I kind of want to see that. But number one and number two, first, definitely, I think Barcelona, the Keys. This also led me into a little bit of discovery about military resorts. And there's a few, and what got me on that path was researching the Keys. There's a new one. Well, I think there was the Naval Air Station down there. There's the old one. I think they did away with that and it was damaged in a hurricane. They just built a new one that's very reasonable. On the list was another interesting one, Deer Valley, Utah. Brand new, like, luxury resort. This one's cool.
Really?
Yeah, it's like semi-public, semi-private. So for the public side, I'm sorry, semi-public, semi-military. So, like, the military owns 100 rooms in this luxurious resort. So if you wanted to go as a member of the public, it's like $500 a night. But for military, it's like $122 a night. And it's right on the base of the mountain, like by Bald Mountain. You can go skiing, or on the summertime, like hiking and other activities. So that's high on the list now too. I'm like, hey, that'd be really great for us, a winter getaway.
Yeah, you're just sparking some ideas for some new articles that to write about is where to go visit.
Yeah.
I just know with all of these military resorts, as nice as they are, if once they're discovered, like once you put them out there, it's oftentimes hard to get a reservation less than a year out, which ironically is difficult for most military people to do, planning a year out, because you have no idea where you'll be in a year.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult, but you're retired. You can go there whenever. It's like taking a Space A flight out to Greece or what, which, by the way, if you've never been to Greece, I'd recommend that you put that on your list as well. Great beaches, absolutely great beaches.
Well, that was,
and food.
You spoiled
Wonderful food.
You spoiled my question. That was my next question. I was saying, what am I missing? What am I missing?
Oh yeah,
it's
go
Greece.
to Greece.
Go to Greece. Fair enough. All right, add it to the list.
Or Scotland.
Okay.
Or Ireland.
The rest of the world. Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much.
Fair enough.